So today's video, we're continuing to work on our Buick. So let me show you what we got going on. In the last video we did the brakes. I had to run the passenger side line. So there's the passenger side line right there. Runs up under this heat shield right here. Comes back down underneath, and you might see down there I got a piece of rubber on it so it doesn't rub up against the frame. Well, I was underneath the car and I kind of saw that gaping hole right there, except there was a battery on top of it. And I'll show you the battery tray. That's what happened to the battery tray. That's what northern New York weather does to you over a period of time. So I got it pulled out. I'm not sure how I'm going to hold down the battery, but we'll get to that later. So today's video is body work. We're going to put a new panel in there. We're going to clean this edge up right here. So we got something to glue to. We're going to do some PL3 gluing. So we're going to get our panel. It's going to sit flat in here. It took out some of our wheel well here. So we're going to have to find a way to bend our panel up into the wheel well. And then of course we're going to buff all this out to where our glue will stick. So let me show you what we got. By the way, I've taken out a lot of the electrical here, so we got it shoved out of the way. We'll put all that back when we're done. So let me show you our body panel here. We're using some Home Depot materials today. This is a 26 gauge 12 by 24 zinc plated piece of sheet metal. This is the battery tray I picked up at my local parts store. We got hardware for this. So we tested our battery to make sure our battery fits in here, and it does. So the goal for today is we're going to get this shaped. We're going to get it where we need it, and then we're going to tape off where our glue is going to go so we can paint it. We got some paint. We got some flat white paint, primer. I think it's primer and paint all in one. Yeah, paint primer. Got this stuff here. This is what I like to use. This one here is flat white because, you know, it's not a panel you're going to see. It's going to be covered up by a battery, but at the same time, we don't want rust. I know it's zinc plated, and zinc plated stuff doesn't rust, but you don't know my luck. So here's our casualties on our table here. I got our coolant tank or washer tank taken out, like my little job right there. There's our battery. There's our horn. I took the horn out. Even though it wasn't in the way, I took it out just in case we had to bend that panel up into the fender well. And then our glue, the stuff I've used before, this is PL3. I used this when I put the floor panel in my truck, and it's still there. The only thing that we're not going to do to this panel that I did to my truck was self-tapper it down. We're not putting no self-tappers in this. We're going to rely solely on the weight of the battery and the glue to hold that panel in until I can get knowledge to where I can weld. After I can weld, then I'm going to come back in here and I'll scrape up all that PL3. We'll buff it all back out, and then I'll tack weld it down to the frame. Good news is this frame is pretty solid, so we got a good spot to work with. And if the panel goes right and lands where I want it, I'm going to create some flaps here, and we're going to bend the panel down into the side of the structure here. That way it kind of adds a little bit of stability to it. And then once the panel is in, we'll drill our holes for our battery tray. We'll get it mounted, and then we'll put the battery in and put all of our electrical and stuff back in. I got our coolant tank sitting over there because that's where it decided to live. So we got that over there. So let's get started. First thing we need to do is we need to get our panel measured and get it sitting where we want it, and then we'll get it painted. And then while it's painted and drying, then we'll come back in here and we'll get all the spots bare so that our glue will stick, and we'll just keep on keeping on. So let's get started. That's the part I love about this car. You can basically record from anywhere on this car. Makes it really easy to do good videos for you guys, especially because there's a lot of spots for your camera to sit. Let me get my... So, let me show you how we're gonna... We need to get this down in here. Looks like our width is gonna be fine. We just need to measure from this panel to this panel and then translate that over here. Taking into account we got to put a little bit of a curve in it. Now I could make a cardboard cutout. I don't have any cardboard. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a rough cut. A rough cut is when you take your measurements from end to end, you're going to add probably about, I'm going to add a little bit extra to it, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to send it underneath here. So we're going to add a little bit to it. It's going to go underneath, and then we're going to take a look at it at that point and see what we got to do. So I got to go get my measuring tape and a Sharpie, and then we'll get this measured and we'll see what we're doing after that. So stay tuned. And a Sharpie. Now there's two different ways you can do this. If you're going to do just the pan, because this is a plastic set for the fender, this is kind of like your mud flap. You can take it to the mud flap and then run it straight across, and then run a piece of plastic from the inner fender down over top like they do in the modern cars. Or you can run a piece of steel across the bottom there and then do like, you know, like what we're trying to do here. Just be careful, because we've got electrical down in here that we've lost structure for, so we're going to probably have to shove this all the way up the frame rail up to this piece right here. So we're going to use a lot of this metal today, because we want to cover all of this up, because that's what it's supposed to look like according to the GM book. So what we're going to do is we're going to start from the inside of the fender, because we got a spot above the tire we can get to. We're going to run our measuring tape through the inside of the tire here. See, here's our measuring tape. We're going to run it all the way to where the bumper bolts. All right, the bumper support. Let's see if we can get our tape straight here. So I'm seeing 17 and a half. So we're going to go and make that 18. We're going to go 18 so that we got enough to bend up, because we're going to bend up into the fender well. And then we might self-tap this for a minute. It just all depends on what we got as far as structure. And then the width, let's take the width from here. Let's see, we can go to the edge. We're looking at 11.5 to the edge of the frame rail, which is over here. I'm not going to take it to the edge, so I'm just going to go 10 inches out. No, let's not do that, because that's going to cause some issues. Let's go 8.5. That puts it from here to about there. So we got 8.5 by 18. That's our measurements. So now we got to translate that to our piece of steel here. So if this is how we're going to lay it, like that, we got to mark our 18. Let's see, our 18 is going to be, put it on the edge here so you can easily mark it here. So we're going to hold our tape steady. We can get it to stop wanting to walk. It's hard to do this on the car. Your measuring tape wants to tip over all the time, so we're trying to get it to stay level. All right, so we're going to take our Sharpie and we're going to mark our 18. There we go. And then our width was 8. So we're going to mark it 8. So that's going to put us See if I can get you guys in the frame here so you can see what we're doing. If you can, lock your... Alright, so what we want to do is we want to bring it down here to where our first mark is. And then if we can get our measuring tape to sit still, make our next mark right here. It works better if you got a black Sharpie, but all I have is this metallic silver Sharpie. But I can still see my marks. It looks like dirt. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to cut this panel. Now you can cut it with anything you want. I'll get this cut and I'll be right back. Make sure you're wearing safety glasses when you do this. Make sure that you follow whatever direction this is. This here tells you that it's spinning in that direction, so you're probably going to get sparks coming out this way. We shall see. You want to bend it down, bend it back up, bend it back down, bend it back up until it breaks off. There we go. And then the cool part about this tool is you can take the edge here and you can buff it like this. There we go. First cut accomplished. Now, like I said before, now we're going to take it and slide it down in our space and see if we need to do the other cut. If we do, we'll mark it and we'll cut it. The other thing you want to do is you want to check it for level, because as you can see, I made another line. That line was crooked. So I went through and did it again, and sure enough, that's how far off I was on my line. So we're going to take you, and we'll put you guys back on the car here so you can see what we're doing. I'm going to take this piece, we're going to set it down in here, because we got it cut. Alright, so it looks like we're going to have to do the 8 cut. So, alright, so now we got to make that line across. And I think... let's see what we got here. Now, another way we could do this would be for me to take it up under here, but I don't have much of a space here because there's a frame rail right here. So that's why we're doing it over the top. Alright, so our 8-inch cut's going to be on that line right there. So let me grab my tape. We're going to measure it from that edge to that edge, make sure that we still have our 8 inches. And we do. There's our mark right there. Okay. So now we got to make our mark. Take my tape. I try to level it the best I can. It's better if you have a straight edge than a measuring tape. Especially because with a measuring tape you can always get your line crooked, as I showed you previously. Alright, so if you're going to do it with a measuring tape, this is how you do it with a measuring tape. You take your line and you run it across lightly. Run it across. And then what you want to do is you want to take your measuring tape and check it 3 places. So what I do is I'll take my tape and I'll set it like that, right? I know my line's at 8. So then I'll slide the line down just like that, because you're riding the edge of your metal so that your line's going to be the same all the way down. And if I see any spot where my line's going to be different, see that line, it's 8 inches all the, well, see we're at 7 3/4 there. So right about, right in here, we're going to have to change, we're going to have to fix our line. So then we'll bring our tape across, we'll hold it down. We'll take our Sharpie and we'll mark it. As long as you got a good straight edge here, you're going to have a good line down here. So we're going to have to set our tape back across where we were. Line it up on that line right there, and then we're going to have to repin our line. See how far off we were? So right about in here, we're going to see the line change. See that? Line changed. Go back here. There's our 8. And now our 8, and then it's going to start to go 8 and like 3/16. So we're going to have to wipe the line off and start over. So as long as we got our initial spot right there, we can clear this up. I think we can take some window cleaner. Spray some window cleaner on it and then wipe it, and it should erase it. Yep. Takes it right off. Yeah. As long as you don't put too dark of a line on it, you can take it off. Alright. So we got our line removed. We took it off to there. We could take it all the way off if we wanted to, but I just want to take it off to there. And I'm going to put my tape back on it. Actually, you know what? I got a better idea. We made us a straight edge. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our 2 good corners here. We're going to measure down to 8, and we're going to set our piece of sheet steel on the 8-inch mark, which is right there. All right, and then we're going to take it and we're going to rotate it to where it's straight across the back. We take our Sharpie and we're going to remake our line like this. There we go. Our line is made. And if we did it, see that? We can line it right up with our mark down here. There's our line. Now we got to cut it. So pull your piece back to where it's off your bench. And we're going to score it like we did the other piece. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to crack it like we did the other piece. Ooh, this one don't want to crack. There we go. Try not to bend our main piece because we need that to stay put. There we go. Set that over there. And we'll buff our edge up because we got a little bit of a hoop-de-doo there we got to fix. So that's our edge. Alright, now we can go stick this in the car and see if it fits. And if it fits, we'll get it ready for paint. Alright, so let's get you set back up in the engine compartment here where you can see the massive gaping hole we're trying to fix here. Alright, so let's see if we can fit this in the hole. So I was thinking something like this. We'll pick up our electrical down here so we don't get it caught up in the mess of everything. Set it down in here like this. There we go. And then of course we got our edge there we need to bend up, so we're going to do that here in a minute. And that looks good to me. We'll get it and kind of push it down here to where we can get our spot here. We got it sitting up against our bump stop down there. Now, alternative option B, if you want to do it this way, we can send it through the hole down here in by the wheel well here. We can get it. In order to do this, you're probably going to take the tire off. The tire's in the way. So, alternatively, you can send it through this hole down here. But we want it to sit up here, and we measured it correctly, and it looks like we're going to be in good shape here. We want to get it over as close to this edge as we possibly can. We got to move our electrical out of the way because we've got electrical in here for the headlights and the radiator fan and all of that. So we don't want to get none of that caught up in this piece of steel here. So you got to pick that up, and as soon as it's resting up against that bump stop right there, all right, that looks to me like we're going to have us a battery tray. Now, in order to get this to bend, and I know we're going to have a corner over here that we're going to have to address later on. In order to get this thing to bend, we're going to have to make a relief cut. So that's what the 10 snips are going to be for. We're going to make a relief cut right in here, and we're going to make a little bit of a cut. That way we can bend this metal. And as soon as we got it formed to where it's going to go around the fender well, then we can go ahead and get it buffed and cleaned and ready for paint. If you want to, like I said, alternatively, you can slide this up into the fender well, and then we could probably bend it up into the inner fender so it doesn't make contact with the tire. Or if you want to just use this flat panel here and you don't want to mess with the inner fender, we can just cut it like that, and it'll slide down into the space where we're trying to put it. You can do it that way too. Either way you do it, it's going to be fine. We also need to make a flat panel later on because this structure's rusted, so we're going to have to rebuild this structure right here, but that's another day. That's when I can weld, because we're going to have to weld a panel to this here to make that all solid again. So, but for today, we're just going to get this battery tray built. All right, so what we need to do now is I need to go get my Sharpie. We need to press this flat like this. Press this flat like this, okay? And then we need to, after we get it pressed flat, we need to make our marks where it bends so we can make our relief cut. That way we can bend this panel up a little bit more to where we can get it set flat. All right, we're gonna set it flat like this to where it's resting on this frame rail right here. We need to, let's see, I think we need to bend it in here somewhere. That should translate over here somewhere. Okay. And we're going to put a little bit of a bend on it. Not a whole lot, because we only need a little bit of a bend. So, let's see what we can do about making this thing bendable. Alright, so I made a couple small relief cuts to where we can bend it. And I took my hand, palm of my hand, I just put down on, I pulled up on it, got it to bend. I made another mark right here, because that's where we're going to have to bend it again. We're going to have to bend this corner over. So let me show you how we're going to do that. I'm going to go get a pair of vice grips, and I'm going to show you how we bend corners. So give me just 1 second. All right, so this corner here, we got to make a slight bend in. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our vice grips. We're going to clamp them. Well, we're going to try to clamp them. I don't know if I can get a good grab with these. It's a little hard to do with these vice grips. Grab it like that, and we're going to make a slight bend in it like that. You want to do it in a couple places, that way it's not abrupt. All right, we made our bend. Let's go to the car and see what we got. I think that's going to fit perfect. Set this down. Of course, we're having to go in here and pick up on our electrical. Set this down in here like this. All right, so we gotta make a provision for an attachment screw right there. So let me see here. I had this further back, didn't I? Yeah. The bend starts right there. So we're off of our piece back there, but that's okay because we need the extra for up here. Oh, look at that. That is nice. So let me show you how we're going to fix this to where it'll stay put. We're going to put a couple bricks on it. And what we're going to do is we're going to get our panel in position where we want it. We'll set a couple bricks on it to hold it still. Make sure that we're up against where we need to be. Because we want to be as close to the edge of this car as possible, because we're going to only have 2 points of contact on this panel, because the rest of this here is rusted out. We're going to have to one day rebuild it when I get the ability to weld. So we got our panel lined up where we want it. Now at this point, if you want to, you can make reference marks on your car and reference marks on your panel. That way when you go to glue it, or if you're going to self-tap it, you've got a spot where you don't have to worry about where you were on it. I'm not going to self-tap it because even though it's going to be covered up by a battery, I'll know it's there. And I don't want to put any more holes in this car than it already has. So you can understand my concern there. But see what we got here? We got to move that over a little bit more. So we're going to take and we're going to push it like that. Look at that. And then let me see what we can do on the inner fender's got to stay put. So what we might need to do is we might need to make another, might need to extend our relief cut a little bit further to allow that room to move. Otherwise what you're going to end up doing is ripping the metal, and that's the last thing you want to do is rip the metal. So, well, let me go get a hammer. I'll go get a hammer and we'll see if we can't tap that in a little bit more. So I'll be right back. All right, let's see if we can tap that in a little bit more. I'm sorry my hammer selection is limited. We got a body line right here we got to take into account, so I'm going to have to see if we got something we can use to score that with so that we can get it around that body line. Usually a flathead screwdriver, if you don't have any body shaping tools, flathead screwdriver, and you take it right there with a small hammer and you just kind of tap it, it creates a crease right here. And then that could also aid in how you mount this in the car too. All right, so our panel shifted, so we got to move it back. Our panel shifted when we hammered it, so we got to move it back to where it was. We need it as straight as we can get it. All right, we got a little added advantage here. We got a screw right here that we need to make accommodations for. So let me see how we're going to do that here. I think what we're going to do is we're going to pull it all the way back. We're going to push down on it. And I think if we make a little notch right there with our tin snips, we can slide it over that screw, and that screw will actually do us a benefit, because what it'll do is it'll hold this in place. Now I understand, and a lot of you are probably going to say, you still got a hole right there, but see, here's the thing. Let me see if we can. There we go. There, now we got it in place. And what I'll do is I'll make a mark. See, I'm pushing the panel down flat. I'm gonna make my mark, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a slight cut if I don't cut this corner out. I think what I'll do is I'll just cut this corner out. And then that way we'll fit the panel back in, and it should fit. I'm not too worried about this over here right now because we're going to have to rebuild it anyway after my ability to weld has been acquired. So right now, this is going to work for us. So I'm going to make that little relief cut, take that little corner out, bring it back over here, make sure it fits nice and snug. And if it fits nice and snug, then we're ready to clean it and paint it. So let's take our panel back to our bench. We'll get that piece cut out and then we'll refit. I'm going to leave you here. I'm going to cut that section out and I'll be right back. All right, I cut our corner out. Pick up our electrical. Now before we glue this down, I'm going to have to clean this back out in here, but at least, let's see if we can set our panel down. We'll lock it on that screw. And look at that. We have our sheet metal. Check that out. Look at that. Isn't that nice? Now this over here, I could probably shape that a little bit better, but I'm not going to worry about it because I'm going to show you something. Can you see our sheet metal up in the hole right there? This is all my fender right here. This is as far down as the fender goes. So you see they got some plastic on it right here. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to get an old fender liner out of like one of the newer Buicks. And then I'm going to cut it to fit. And so I'm going to take it and I'm going to just fit it down inside here and it'll cover up all this metal right here. And then as far as underneath, where the metal is supposed to be in here, I'll get a piece of sheet metal, come in from underneath when I get ready to weld. And I'll come in from underneath and I'll contour it up into here underneath the plastic and I'll be good to go there too. And that's how you rebuild your inner fender on your Buick. So now we got to get it cleaned, painted. We got to get the frame rail cleaned up, get all the rust off of it so the glue's got something to stick to. Then we wait. Because glue, the PL3 has to have 24 hours to set. So after we get the PL3 down on the frame rail and we get this panel down and we get it where we want it, because we got it marked right down here. So we've got to line it up right in here. It'll be fine because I'm going to buffer this out a little bit here. We'll put some PL3 along here and then we'll put some along here. So that way we know we're going to stick. We'll let that sit for 24 hours. We'll come back tomorrow and we'll drill our holes for our battery tray. So this is going to be a multi-day video. So, all right, so ignore the gap right here. That gap's going to be filled with PL3. So what we need to do now, since we got our panel where we want it, we got it nice and tight up against here. This is final answer time. We're going to make a mark right above where our panel sits. We're doing this so we know where to put the glue. So that's where our panel sits. Now we're going to pull our panel back and we're going to see how much frame rail that gives us. Let me pull our panel out here. Oh, that gives us a whole bunch of frame rail. Look at that. Everything from that line over we can glue. That gives us a bunch of room. So that means that when we're ready to glue, before we paint, we're going to have to tape the back of this. So let's go get this backside ready for paint. And I'll show you how we're going to do that. First thing we're going to do, we need to come back to the bench. We're doing a lot of bench work this week, or on this video. So we get our bench set up, get our rag here. I'm going to just clean this up with some window cleaner. You can use whatever you want on it. I'm using window cleaner. We got to get our fingerprints and everything off of it. Make sure that it's nice and clean so the paint will stick. I'm using primer and paint combo. That way I don't have to put a piece of primer to it and then let it wait a minute and then put the paint to it. All right, so we know that this corner over here is the upper edge of the fender. So we need to put a piece of tape across here and a piece of tape across here. That way we got our surfaces cleared. And we're putting the piece of tape across it so that when we paint, we won't have any paint on our surface that we need to glue down. That's why we're doing the paint. That's why we're doing it this way. And if you want to lay your piece over the edge of your bench, and then take your tape, put it right on the edge of your metal, and just kind of run it down and across. Alright, that sets that side up. And then that's on the inside, so this is going to be the outside edge. We'll take our tape, and we're going to run it right across the edge here, like that. I saw some shiny, so we're going to add an extra row of tape across it. Alright, so that takes care of that. So this has got to sit and dry for a while, so while it's drying, I'm going to go do other things. So, alright, so now we need to take this to our painting station. But, you know, I don't have one of them fancy little shaker things, so we got to just do it by hand. Let the little ball do its work. All right, and we're gonna go ahead and spray it. We're doing this in case they look underneath the car, they won't notice the damage. That, and I just like having my stuff painted. All right, let that sit and cure. So while that's happening, I'm gonna go do some service repairs, and we'll see you back here in a little bit. Okay, I got our patch panel on side 2 painted and drying in the paint booth. I just did a fitment with it off camera, and we're not going to use the plastic tray. We're going to just attach the battery right to the plate. So doing that, we're going to utilize this hole here and some of this over here on the side. We're going to run a bungee strap, wrap it down that way. That'll hold it in place. And then later on down the road, we'll come up with a more permanent solution if I don't find one before then. So now that we got our paint drying on our piece, I moved our electrical away out of the way because it was kind of getting in the path of where I got to be today. So we're going to buff it up with our wheel here. I'm going to just buff this edge up on this side of the Sharpie so we got nice clean surface. And then I think what we're going to do before we after we get the patch panel in place is we're going to take our paint, we're going to repaint this rail right here too, because we got some rust popping through. We want to kind of stop the rust. So let's get this buffed up real quick so we can get our space ready for our glue, and then we'll move on to what we got to do next. Okay, got that buffed up a little bit. It might look shiny on camera because that's what it did. It got it all shiny, but we're going to use our Scotch-Brite pad here. Try to get us a nice area so we got a good spot for that glue to attach to. I'm about tempted to repaint this whole thing before I put the metal down on it, just to keep this thing from rusting out anymore. I don't have my air hose down here. I just blow it out with the air hose. All right, we got our surface all, I guess you could call that prepped up. I need to get a rag and wipe the dirt off this side over here so the stuff will stick to it. Now the idea, or the goal you should have, is if you can get bare metal to attach your glue to, that's the best way to do it. If you can't get bare metal, get as close as you possibly can. You don't want dirt anywhere around here because glue will stick to dirt, but dirt has no sticking properties to it. So you want to clean this up the best you can. And we do have some bare spots here we could probably be fortunate to have, but you want to get all the rust off of it first. So we got our surface prepped. Now we're just waiting on the paint to dry. Got our panel painted, looks really good. Except for that, it was perfect, and then of course we did some test fits and that kind of scuffed the paint a little bit. Let me show you why we did the paint on the tape. That is why we did that. That bare space is what we're putting our PL3 on. So we're going to PL3 this sucker. We're going to mount it down in there. But we're going to put the PL3 on the car side. And then we're going to lay this down and press it down on top of the PL3. So it might squish a little bit. But if we try to put it on the panel with the confined space that we have here, we're going to screw it all up. And I don't really want to get the stuff on my hands again. This stuff is really hard to get out of your hands, your clothes, you name it. So now we're ready to install our panels. So we got to get our gun primed up here. See, this stuff shoots pretty quick. So as soon as you get it at the end of your gun, you just want to kind of easy does it here. Just kind of work it across your panel. I'm going to get down in here. Anywhere you think that panel is going to sit, I'm going to put a bead on it. Alright. That should be good enough. When you store this stuff, store it like this with the end up. You want to take your gun and you want to let the pressure off the back of it. You want to put let this thing drain down and put a screw in the end of it so you don't end up wasting it. Alright, let's get our panel installed. Let's pick our electrical up like we've been doing this whole video. Slide it down, get it underneath all the electrical. Make sure not to let any of that PL3 touch your panel until you got it in position. And once you get it in position, get it right up in there and you're just going to press it down like that. We have a screw hole to use as kind of like a reference mark, so let's go ahead and push this down like that. Push, push, push. Push, 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 push. You might see like right there it's starting to squeeze out. You want that to squeeze out. And then you want to get on the back here and you want to push, push, push. You want to get this to hold itself still. Once you got it glued down, start building up your space to hold it in place. That's where the bricks come in. Grab you some bricks. Put them down here on this wedge it down inside there, kind of give you a little bit of weight on that. This up here, we're just going to have to probably take the PL3 and do like a seam seal on it. I'll show you how we do that. This is how you seam seal. You take your piece and you get your gun to where you're back into doing stuff with it. And you take your caulking gun and you just kind of run a seam seal across it. And that's how that works. You can do it down in here too. There we go. Seam seal it. And if you want to, you can take your finger. Careful, because your panel is going to be really sharp. You can kind of go along the edges here and just kind of fill in the gaps like that. That's how that works. We let that sit overnight. Tomorrow, which will be day 3, we'll put our battery in. We're going to let that sit overnight. It'll cure. Tomorrow it'll be like concrete, which is what we want. We'll pull the bricks out, and then I'll start putting the electrical back in, because there's a stud down here. We got this wire and this wire here that goes on that stud. The horn attaches back here. No, wait, that's where the washer bucket goes. The horn attaches here, so we got to put the horn back in. Then we'll put our battery down in. We'll bungee it off of that hole down there, and then we'll tie it into somewhere over in here. And that'll hold our battery in. Let's take a look at what it looks like underneath. We haven't done an under car shot yet, so let's do an under car shot for you. So you can kind of see what we're dealing with here. See, there's our new panel. I apologize for it being dark under here. But you see what we did here? So that new panel sits right up there, and it fills that big massive hole that we just took care of. Don't worry about that daylight right there, because we're going to take care of that another way. You can see that gap right there. I'll put my hand in it. See that right there? That's going to be, we're going to get a piece of fender liner, and we're going to cover that up. So, and then of course it goes all the way back to where the headlights bolt in the front. So we've got it basically fixed. But I'll show you the other side, because the other side's going to be in a lot worse shape. The other side is where we had our Dynaride compressor. And I had to pull the Dynaride compressor because it fell through and was vibrating on the car. See, here's our frame rail on this side. This is for our Dynaride. Our air hose for it sitting right here. This is our snorkel tube for our air box. Down in here, see that round thing right there? That's my purge tank. So in order to fix this side, I've got to get, well, the only thing keeping this from falling through is this frame rail right here. So this side's a little different. We have to actually get a piece of sheet steel like we did on the other side, cut it out, put it in here, and then we got to figure out how big this sleeve is, so we can put our purge tank back in our car there. And then this side will be sealed up. This side's not too bad though, from what I can tell. I haven't taken the bracket off or pulled the air box yet, but it's not too bad compared to that over there. Yes, I repainted my strut tower. So that will do it for this wonderful little video. Questions and comments as usual. If you want, I could do a short follow-up after I get it back together again to show you how it looks and how it works. Aside from that, see, we got to push that back because it's trying to pull back away. So we need to probably do this with it. I'm going to find something to wedge down in there to hold that up against there so that it'll seal properly. But anyways, I will see you next time.